we are going to start afresh, in the sense that there's no reference point to the mistakes I made, and that now we're going to make new mistakes, not my mistakes, but both of us. So 2016 came, the first few months okay, then out of nowhere, the fight started. But this time round, like I said, there was no reference point. But now it was more of, I still need to deal with my demons. I'm like, okay. I was still a very patient guy. I'm like, fine, then give me a timeline. Let's work with something, a week, month, 2 weeks, whatever. Give me that timeline, I'll work on it. Let's do it. That's how committed I was. So that didn't come through. So I remember the year almost went by, and the plan was for us, once the engagement was done, the plans, marriage, nini, all those things were supposed to be done within the same year, and probably the wedding was meant to be towards the end of the year. So I remember, the months went by, it's October now, we had this big fight, and for the very first time I remember, I told her, you know what, I need to breathe now. Because I could sense it in me that if she pushes me just a tad bit more, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I'm not a violent man, but if you push me, I don't know what I can do, right? So I'm also scared of myself. So I remember telling her, fine, I need time to breathe. And my assumption was maybe I just needed 2-3 days to just cool off and regroup. That turned out to a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So she didn't call, she didn't text, she didn't do anything. So it was just silence.
Remember, me, I used to call, Call, WhatsApp, Nini. His is completely different, but the same. I'm sorry I keep ingiaing,
No worries.
Sorry, I keep interjecting.
So,
Venye story inaniguza mahali.
in retrospect, if she had reached out, even if it was a text, then the situation would have been different. Maybe I would have reconsidered. But after the month and so much thinking, and I just decided, you know what, I'm going to end this. Like, I'm going to break this engagement, and that's it. I knew there was going to be a backlash, but I was like, those people don't know what I've been through or what we've been through. So I called it off. And I remember asking God, you just give me a sign. Very well. Before even the month was over, I asked God, give me a sign. And this is what the sign shall be. Remember when in the Bible, Jacob told God that if you take me to that place and bring me back in one piece, then you shall be my God. And it was at that Bethel place. So for me, that was my Bethel place. I told God, you know what, if she sends me a text or calls me, then I will know that that's a sign that you want me to go on. And I committed to that. So that didn't happen. And to me, I felt confident that, you know what, God is silent on this one. He just wants it to slide. Anyway, so I told her, fine, this is it. It's done. So I was looking at all that investment I had done into saving what we had. I regretted a bit, but then again, on the flip side, it made me a better person. I learned how to deal with myself, how to carry myself, how to be remorseful, how kushuka chini, because just like Rosalind says, the ex, we grew up together. Na tulikuwa tunaweza, let me not even lie. Tulikuwa tuna tatiza. Ni kutesa.
Kutesa wengine.
So it's one thing for you to live up to that image, and it's another thing for you to just get off the high horse and take that bitter pill.
So what I'm learning from me is that at times it doesn't matter what you're going to lose, as long as we're at peace, you go for closure. So don't look at, I'm going to lose this image, or it's going to affect my social life. It's you who knows, not what other people say. Because we're saying, it's you who knew why you wanted a closure, irrespective of what people say about you.
Yeah, and another thing is, in terms of relationships, what I learned was, not every relationship can be restored, and that not every relationship has to be restored.
Get it well, repeat it again.
That
Si lazima.
sio lazima every relationship ikuwe restored. And also, kwa Kiswahili imenilostisha. So not every relationship can be restored, and also not every relationship has to be restored. So sometimes some things just play out the way they did because you must learn something out of it. If you came out alive, it means that you still have another chance to either do it better, to do it right. And that's how I looked at it. And that's how I got out of, that state that I was in. Because it was quite depressing, I wouldn't even lie to you. This is somebody I've known for years. We are friends, we've shared so much, only for it to just crumble like that. So you have to deal with the parents, you have to deal with the relatives, you have to deal with everyone, because the engagement was done in front of all of them. So everybody knew, So all these questions you have to deal with, the band, because she was just part of the band fully. Like, how do I come back and tell them, you know what, it's over? Then, of course, you don't want to hear that Bible speak at that particular time. Like I told you, I'm not religious. I'm very spiritual. So I look at religion as somebody's own thoughts. So they can be skewed at some point, depending on what they're going through. But what is God actually saying? So I actually blocked that, and I told myself, fine, not so many people will know about this, and I will just slide into it. And I thank God because that phase came in, because during that time, that was in 2016 to 2017, I linked up, and I came across such an amazing human being, and whose story was even way greater than mine. And we bonded over that. And that friendship grew, and it blossomed into something else. Now we are looking at, taking it to the next level, right? And I look at what I learned then, and right now in that relationship, awesome. And for me, it wasn't, so both of us, when we partnered, we were not looking at getting a relationship, and it was not even about trying to make what do you guess, fallback plan, I don't know.
Bouncing
Rebound,
back.
Yes, that one. It wasn't that. Because she had a story, I had a story. We're here, we're thinking, if at all this should ever happen between us, how would we change things? How would we resolve things, So for me, that was my takeout. And it has really, really redefined how I am looking at this particular relationship.
Now, before you go to the questions, just one thing. There's an area that I want you to dive in.
Yeah.
That you, after some time, you have not met your dad.
Yeah.
So you met your dad, had some times with your dad. When you're now bonding with your dad, something happened.
Oh, please let me say that story. Now, you guys, anyway, I've told you we were boys, with these guys growing up, starting the band and everything. So his mother passed away when they were very young. And so they've grown up with a father, and my siblings, of course. But now, the dad was absent when they were growing up, and not very much there, like physically. So at some point, when they're already grown-ups, the guy tries to make a comeback. And it happens, it's okay. You come back, but don't come back calling shots. So that's how his dad came back. Ali come, and he now wants to take his rightful place. And so these guys, Aruko, people are working, you're a grown man now, and your father is asking you, ini saa ngapi unaingia kwa nyumba? Hiyo nyumba, by the way, ni ume kukilipa. Him is not even been around. And so they had such a difficult time trying to readjust and kujuana tena. You weren't there, now you're back. It was so stressful for him and his brother and his sister. I remember sometimes he would come for rehearsal and say, you guys, I can't take it anymore. I can't be in the same space with this guy. unfortunately, his father got an illness and became sick. And just before the illness, they had bonded and they had now started to heal and to have this relationship as father-son. And it was going good. His dad would actually call him now and ask him about, also, what should I do, about some investments. My friends, if your parents begin to consult you on their next move, mko your place. Mko your place, sasa hapo hivyo. Ati, sasa. So anyway, so they were there, and the relationship was, they had patched things up, and they were doing good. And then, boom, his father gets this terminal illness. And it really ate into his body, ate into his, into their time with him. And just recently, may God rest his soul, he passed away. And before he did, I will never forget. In fact, I said it in front of Pasi, and Iganza didn't even know that's how I felt about it, but I've never forgotten what he told me. Before his dad passed away, and when the relationship was very good, and they were having that father-son moment, and many of those, and he told me, you know what, Kaki, you know what? I have come to understand why my mom had to go. I have come to understand why my mom had to die. So I was like, okay, so why? Why? And he told me it's because it was so that I could have a relationship with my father. It was so that I could get to know my father. My mom had to be plucked out of the situation. And now I know this guy. Now I feel like we can exchange our notes. We can talk about a few things on the table. And just when you think things are okay.
And it's interesting because when my mom passed on, I was 22. Then 15 years later, my dad passes on. And it didn't make sense. My mom was my girl. Like, I would tell her things, about the girls I'm doing things with. Then my mom was open like that. It was more of, I want to know your kind of people, wakuje home, So that bond was so tight. So when she died, I didn't know what to do with myself. Because now here, my dad is around. How do we deal with this? Where do we start? And when we just started, then he passes on. And that was the lesson that I took out, that my mom had to die, yes, for me to have a relationship with my dad.
Now, I want us to take us through how do you go to closure in regard to losing a loved one, and how you went through the father's wound, and for that relationship to come back. Now, is there anyone who has a question after there? Any question? Any question? Any question regarding what you have learned as we finalize? Any question? Kare, do you have any question from the slide? If Kare is within. A question from the audience? Is somewhere there?
Yeah, there's a question at the back there. Yeah.
You can give Kare the microphone. You see?
So someone is asking, does seeking closure involve confronting the involved person? Like, if you're seeking closure, do you have to talk to your ex about it? And kindly define what is closure.
Any other? You want to combine them? Any other? Maybe one more from the audience? Yes. Philip.
Praise God.
Amen.
Speaking from a point of the oppressor, what do you do when you've tried your best, you've given it your best to try to erase your mistakes, and still you think they don't believe you, they still think you're pretending. You're truly genuine about your change, but no matter what you do, they still believe that you're pretending. What do you do? Thank you.
I think you can take those two as you wait.
I think my answer to the second question is very brief. I think the best apology is changed behavior. And if changed behavior doesn't do it, you can only do so much. You cannot try to force the fact that you've changed down somebody's throat if they don't see it. So just have a meeting with yourself and ask yourself, really, have I truly, really changed? Or I have changed up to face value. Have I changed deep down? Do I really want to be this new person? Because you have to want it for yourself, not for her or for your ex-boss or whoever. So the best apology is changed behavior.
Amen.
Just addressing your question. I understand we were in the, maybe you are there right now, but I was there before. I believe that you can still have closure. Like I said when we started, that you can still have closure without restoration. And how it applies to you is, closure is for you in this case, that you've done everything humanly possible to salvage that which you have. Now, what is lacking in that situation is restoration. You're longing to have that relationship probably go back to where it was. But now it comes to this other person. And that ties to the question that the lady at the back asked. Because can closure happen? How can closure happen? For me, and I strongly believe that there's no closure without dialogue. And it could be dialogue not so that you resolve it, but for you to express yourself. So you need to create a space whereby people can express themselves freely. Rosalind decided to express herself the way she did. So somebody else, asijifunge, let them speak it all out. You speak it all out. Then that in itself is closure because you've already expressed, right? But find solace in the fact that you will be at peace in as much as your relationship is not restored. Because now that will take a supernatural intervention. I won't even lie to you. Because no matter what you do, if this person is hell-bent on just believing that even if you bring me the entire world, you are still that liar, you are still that guy who cheated on me, you are still that guy who hurt me, it's for them now to deal with that. You've already done your emotional work. It's now for them to do it. And most victims do not like doing that because you're losing something. And something I've just remembered, there's no closure without sacrifice. Sacrifice is a must. Remember, for Isaiah to see the Lord, Uzziah had to die. For us to receive salvation, Jesus had to die. So something about that setup has to die for there to be salvation. I don't know whether that helps.
Amen. Any more questions? Yes?
Pasi has a question.
No, actually I'm asking on behalf of...
Sawa sawa. Ask for a friend.
Seriously. There is a commonwealth of ladies anonymously wamenitumia text. So for anonymity's sake, wacha niulize on behalf. Sindio?
Ulizie.
Wanauliza Iganza, which material were you cut from? They are looking for husband material.
Copper wire.
Ukiona vielea. No.
But probably the story would be, they don't know your story. You've just given probably not even a fraction, a bit of it.
True.
And editing here and there. So I don't know if the same ladies would want to reconsider the repented man versus the
New man.
The previous
before
guy.
and after.
It's very true. Like I said, I started off with a disclaimer. Not that I'm blaming my ex, and that I took full responsibility of my actions and of my indiscretions. And that was my starting point. And that is now where the change started. Owning the problem, not trying to mask it. So I knew it would come with shame. I knew it would come with so much around it. And I was ready for that. So whenever it came, I wasn't surprised. Yes, I was hit a couple of times, not physically, but with the situation. But I constantly reminded myself why I was doing what I was doing. So I was ready for the shame. I was ready for that apology that would be given, then it's trashed. For those phone calls that you make and they're not picked. For those SMSs that you send and they're not responded to. You know, so it has taken quite a long time for me to even have this attitude that I have. I'm not a perfect guy. I still make my own mistakes, but I've learned a lot from what I didn't do right the last time.
Amen. I think we have one here. And then I think I've seen an old man in the congregation. He's my mentor. Bwana Yesu asifiwe. Mzee Kigume. Amen. Eh? He's married more than most of our ages here. Kama uko 40 years, then uko almost the same. Like he's married over 40 years, if I'm not wrong. Yes, Evelyn. So, Mr. Kigume will answer that question. Hata kama hujaisikia.
Okay, hi. I don't know who to address, but it's just a normal question. In your situation, you had that period, but you are the one texting, calling. In your situation, you had that period, but she didn't communicate. So to you, it was a sign like, wow, it is over. But to her, it was like, unanisumbua, mbona anitext. So ikifika that period, should someone communicate, should someone not communicate, or?
I think I'll tell you what my mom told me. Do you. You do you. You can't communicate. Because one day, 13 years, 5 years down the road, you will sit down and ask yourself, and one of those thoughts will not come into your mind that you're haunting yourself saying, if I just sent that SMS, what if I just called? I will tell you, if you want to communicate, communicate. Go ahead and try. But if that's not what you want, it's being put into your mind by voices around you, by family, by people, it will be short-lived. But if it's your own effort, do you? Because at the end of the day, you'll sit down and have peace and say, I gave it my best. I did everything I thought to do, and it still didn't work. And I'm at peace with that.
I think what she's also asking is, does it mean that closure can be silent?
It could be silent because not every time it's not every time you're going to reach out and get a response from this person. And sometimes you reach out to this person and what they say is not something you're ready for. So it destroys you twice as much. The job I lost when I got married, to this day, I haven't gotten closure because I was working for a pastor, a renowned pastor. You all know him. And the position I had, the HR sister wanted that position and I got kicked out so that the sister could get my position. And she did. Long story short, she was also fired the same way they did it to me. The pastor was also fired. He got a farewell party from his own company. Wacheni Mungu aitwe Mungu. Just let us fear God more than anything else. So I would say, yes, if communication is what you want to do as an individual, please do it. But there are times that what you're expecting to get is not something you're ready for or is not something you will like. Sometimes we need to understand closure is important, yes. It is important, yes. But getting it and now moving on with the new information you have is also a plan that you need to have. You need to prepare for it. You need to prepare for it. It can shoot you down and kill you in a minute. Panic attacks happen, by the way, guys, and they're real. You don't even understand what's happening to your body. And so when you're not prepared that it could go south and go south really fast, it's what we're watching in the news every day nowadays. Oh, I don't know what all is tabiana. It's because you got to your threshold and ujume kasirikaje. Listen to these interviews. All these people, after maybe they've been jailed or come out, you will hear them saying, I don't know what came over me. Something came over me. Ata sijui niligwa. It's like a thing. It's like a spirit. And if you're not ready for it, it sweeps you out. And it's very easy to just pick this stool and kick it on someone. And death happens. So prepare that it could go this way or that way.
No, just as the final is, How do you deal with wounds? Parental wounds, family wounds, father wounds that maybe you need to close so that you can move on?
It's interesting that even when Rosalind told me about this setup, I had been working on something around closure. And today I was just digging through the notes that I had made, and I came across something really interesting. It's finding closure when you can't find restoration. And there's just 4 points. Let me just read them out really quick. How do you get to do that? How can you find closure without restoration? So number one is you lower your expectations. And by so doing is you understand that the person you're struggling with is also a broken person. Right? That's number one. So these are the notes I was making. And number two, do the next right thing. I know, for example, you do not have to figure out everything all at once. Maybe you're dealing with an ex-spouse. What you need to do, just the way Romans 12:16 says, that as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. And by so doing is, do you need to wake up? Wake up. Do you need to brush your teeth? Brush your teeth. But just keep doing the next right thing. That way it shows movement. Other than that, trauma can close you down, right? And number three, surround yourself with a support system. It could be your friends, it could be your workmates, it could be your churchmates, whatever it is, or whoever it is, just have that solid support system. And lastly, give yourself grace. Like the same way God has extended his grace to us, don't be too hard on yourself. The questions, why me? Why did it happen to us? With death, both my mom's and my dad's, it was all a mistake with the hospitals. And interesting, it's the same hospital. And it bordered on negligence, and we were angry in both instances. Then the insurance decided not to pay. So on top of death, you have a bill you need to clear anyway. So we kept on asking ourselves questions. Why is this happening to us? And it was almost at the same time when I also lost my job. I was out of work for almost 9 months. I just got another job 3 months ago. So since last year, after we buried our dad, I think in April, almost immediately after. So all these things, there's debt, there's what, and you're wondering, why are all these things happening to me? Give yourself grace. So just running by them really fast one more time. So lower your expectations, do the next right thing, surround yourself with a support system, and lastly, give yourself grace. That way, you'll be able to find closure without that restoration.
As you add the final thing, as you add on it, what will you advise someone, especially a young lady who is in a toxic relationship and she doesn't want to come out of it?
And she doesn't
want to come out of it.
I think, let me add a point onto the things Anthony was reading. I would say most importantly, above all, find God for yourself. It is one thing to walk with people who know God, and you tend to think you also know him. It happened to Samuel. He was in the temple serving God, and yet the Bible says he was serving this God na hakuwa anamjua. That God called him not once, not twice, not thrice, and every time God would call him, he would run to Eli. How many times is God saying something to you, but you want to run to your pastor? It's not bad. You want to run to your mother, to your friends, to all these other people before you go to God and say, God, are you saying something to me? Know God for yourself. Build an altar for God in your life and know him for yourself. Because there's times, even your pastor is overwhelmed. Even him, he's carrying burdens. There's times even your own family won't be able to pick up that call and you're depressed. So know God, go on your knees and know him. Have a personal relationship with him. Religion will teach you to do and don't do. But relationship will teach you to know and know him more. When you're interested in someone, you want to hang out with them. You want to know things about them. You want to discover them. Feel that way about God. And if you do not, ask for that desire from God. Nisaidie God kuku desire. And I remember Angel did a song about the Israelites and children of Israel and how they were crossing this Red Sea. And they did it and they were victorious and they did it in praise and were singing songs of praise. And the minute they got to the other side, these kids were full, not only kids, even grown people, were full of complaints. How many times has God taken you through a storm and the minute you come out of it and you're hit by something else, umeanza kushukuyu God. He's the same God. The same God who took you through when you were jobless is the same God who's going to take you through right now when you're ill. The same God who is taking you through this storm right now is the same God who's going to come through for you when the next one hits. And we tend to forget that. But know God and refresh your knowledge of him, because God is always in a business of doing something new. So he's in a business of doing something new. But it is amazing how your mind and your spirit will always remind you. In fact, not your spirit, your mind and the devil will always plant things in your head. Like I'm currently doing a song called Who Am I? Who am I, God, that you call me friend? Who am I that you sent your son to die on the cross and overcome death that I may live? So I would say if you are in a toxic relationship, ask yourself, who are you? Know who you are in Christ. Know your value first. Know your source. When you know your source, you're able to appreciate its value. If I give you a gift and I tell you, nimekubaia kutoka Dubai, I brought you this watch. Will you treasure it equally as msi amekubaia kitu ya nini modhurwa? Siko ubaya. But we'll tend to say ini ya majuu. It has sentimental value because I was given. In the same way, know your creator. God, when God created us, I'm sorry, I'm about to preach. Alicheki maji, akaweka mafish. And everything he created had to remain in its environment for it to exist. Yeah?
Amen.
Fish ukitoa kwa maji na die. Cows, if you try to drown it in water, it dies. It has to remain on the ground, on the earth. And when God created you and me, God created a lot of things, and all these things by his word, yeah? And God said, and God said, and God said. But when he created you and me, he did not look to the water or to the sky or to the earth. He looked to himself. And he said, let us create to himself. So you are not only like God, you are of God. And that's why you're the most precious thing.
Amen.
He sent his son for you, not for the grass or fish, for you. The devil will come into your mind and try to twist it. And he will ask you, if kama huyo Mungu ni Mungu, why are you so broke? And those are the things that were going through my mind. If God is really who he is, why am I so low? And that is the devil, you guys. And he came to destroy and to kill and to steal your joy. But Jesus came that you may have life and have it in abundance.
Amen. Amen.
So know your God, know him, and know the promises he speaks and he says over your life. So that in these times, when that storm hits your boat, man, it may not look like you have money now, but you have your Jehovah Jireh, and he says he shall supply all your needs, because there's no word that you will speak that goes back to God empty. And God brings it back void. No way, never. Try him on his word, speak it back to him, and you will see wonders. You will see wonders. If you're in a toxic relationship, pray and ask God to help you to see what it is that you're supposed to learn in that situation, and let him take charge of the storm. There's a voice that even storms obey. God's voice.
Amen.
God's voice.
Amen. Just as we finish, I would like to ask a question, and I will ask one of our elders. Mr. Kigume, is there fear in entering into marriage, and how can we overcome the fear of getting into a marriage? Probably because of what is happening in marriages. how can one overcome that fear? Just in 1 minute of marriages.
How are you?
Fine.
My name is Kikume Karuri. That young man, I mentor him, and so he told me to come and see what he's doing. And so I'm here monitoring and evaluating. I want to thank God for the 2 cases that have been presented. But one of the issues I always talk about marriage is that why do you want to marry? That is a fundamental question that each one of us needs to understand. Most of us marry because we are feeling like we have some movements in our bodies and looking for something that can be able to extinguish that fire. Say error. It is wrong. The reason why people marry is important to understand that the basics of marriage are God-given. God is the designer of marriage. True or not? We go back to the basics of the biblical principles of marriage. But coming to the question of the fear that is there, I can tell you marriage now is not as easy as it was when I was getting married. Not because I had not been dropped. I also had a girlfriend for 3 years. And I was planning to go and pay dowry. And I want to tell you I was harassed, that I talk a lot, and I was dropped. And I thank God. I thank God that I was dropped. Because the lady that is my wife for the last 41 years, mother of 4, I'm a grandfather of 5, and my first grandchild is in Form 3. You can see it's not a joke. Me, I stopped this business long ago. I want to encourage that whether there is fear or not, first of all, it is good to know that marriage is not easy. It's not easy. In my 41 years, it has not been bread and butter. It has not. But it has taken the responsibility of the man. Listen to me, men that are here. It takes up the responsibility of the man to make the marriage. 3 things I will mention and then I will sit down. There is what we call the 3 G's in marriage. And the first G talks of the glory. Who is leading the marriage? Where is the headship of the marriage? When the man is threatened in the home, he will look for solace somewhere else. Are you getting what we are talking about? He will look for solace somewhere else. Secondly, there is what is called the second G, that's called gold or money. Whose money is it? When we don't settle the question of money, the women have a major issue, that her money is hers, and your money is settling on those basics is very, very important. And the last G is a very important one, because it is feminine. We call it the girl. And when we are talking of the girl, we are talking about sex. If there is an area that people are rushing to marry, not because of love, not because of anything, it's just because of sex. When you move into marriage because of sex, I want to tell you, you are also riding on very slippery waters. Why do I say that? Because marriage is more than sex. Marriage is more than sex. And a lot of marriages are ending up because the man is feeling not satisfied and there is sex outside. And the sex outside is beckoning. Come. Come. There are people offering it free. They don't want anything, they just want. And the easiest person to come is not the lady. These human beings here have a problem. I would advise them, marriage is sweet. Just go back to the basics. go back to God. This is what has kept me in my 41 years of marriage, and being serious about the things of the kingdom of God.
Amen.
We are jokers now. I do a lot of speaking in many places. And I want to tell you, of every place that I go, and even on my WhatsApp, whatever, I was just showing my pastor here, just a small clip of some of the things we discuss, sometimes on WhatsApp. Here is a young man who is a homosexual, and he's singing in the choir. At the end of the day, the pastor sends this young man away because I'm a gundu. Has he assisted the young man? But this is what the reality that is taking place in our churches today. May God help us. Let us go back to the basics. My prayer for all of you is that we be broken. We be broken by the things that break the heart of God.
Amen.
What is it that breaks the heart of God? When we are having divorces and separations, this thing hurts God. God hates divorce. Not because I always advise, when the situation is that your life is at danger, I would advise you move away. Because your life is more important than your marriage. May God bless you, my brother. May God bless you, my sister.
Amen.
As you handle the realities and coming up openly to be able to discuss a matter that very few people are willing to speak. God bless you.
Amen.
Thank you.
I think,
Amen. Amen. So I will allow Kaki to just wind up in a nutshell. I want us to pray, because our purpose is not just to give stories, but that if in this place and feel like you need some healing and you need that, God just to minister to your soul. And if there's anything that you need to break in your life, any circles, any closure that you need to make in your life, that God will minister to you. So as Kaki is finishing, I'll just allow the worship team to come and, just one person to come and give us a song. And if in this place I feel like you want us to pray with you, they will be here to pray with us. And plus other ministers. Yeah, they're saying Kaki will sing a song, so I don't know which song. So Kaki will lead us in a worship song. It's public demand. She will lead us in a worship song as she concludes. If in this place we need some prayers, I'll allow the counselors to come here, the ministers to come here, and we'll pray with you. That God will find a place in your heart, and you'll put God first all that you're doing. So Kaki, as you take the microphone, do it as you finish up with everything, as you're praying with the people. Amen.
right, I'd like to thank the pastor who's just shared, and it is good when you sit with wise men and people who've gone before you, listen to their words and learn. And it is true that the church, and please, when he says the church, let your mind not go to a building. The church is you and me. The church has become so, we have isolated ourselves from the issues that are really hurting the people in the church. So when that gay person has been found out and they are chased from the church, it's the stigma I was talking about. Even for my case, I know people who have been asked to step down from a position of praise and worship leader in church because you are now no longer married. And it's like the spirit has left you. Uwezi tuhudumia. Uwezi. And that is not right. We have heard this story many times. Betty Bayo spoke about it. Gloria Muliro spoke about it. Have we ever heard from them again? No. This thing is happening in church. And it's happening in our families. It's happening at our workplaces. And you need to understand that the first thing is not to judge this person or to find who was the victim. Pray for these people. Pray and stand in the gap. I have gone through this painful journey, and I thank God I came out alive. I honestly do not believe that God brought me out of it and restored me for me to come and tarnish this guy's name. No, thank you. But there's a healing that needs to be spoken about because it is there. It is there. You can live again, love again, even if it is again. And many things I came to understand later. But I thank God that I'm whole now, and I found his wholeness in him. So I'd like to thank Douglas and the entire management that made this day possible for us to have this forum, to just talk these things and talk things out and exchange opinions and thoughts on it, because we are going to go home better than we came here. Amen? Amen. Amen.
So I think we can just stand up. The books are still outside on sale. Please, sometimes you need to move out of closure by learning from what people have gone through.